Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Accommodation Show. I am joined today by Valerie Malone from Quill Decor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bart. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for getting up super early in the morning. I think that you're in Cambridge in the UK, is that right?
That's right. Yep. Bright and early.
Yeah, I always appreciate when people can break their schedules a little bit to come and talk to us. So it's much appreciated because we're obviously here in Australia. Welcome to the show. Today we're going to be talking about all things mistakes that we make when we design properties, because you are from a design background. That's why I've got you onto the show. Funnily enough, I think you're in roughly around about 2.5 years, you're the second person who's actually going to talk specifically about designing of short-term rentals, designing of properties. And the reason why I reached out to you is because I know that you're enthusiastic about what you do. I look at your social media, it makes me smile, it makes me happy. And I think that you'll have a lot to share with our audience. Tell me a bit about yourself, about your background, about your business.
Sure. So I live in Cambridge, England now. I'm from America, obviously. And I started out focusing on short-term rental design when my husband and I had a rental ourselves. And we were staying in rentals all over the place, all over America, all over the world, in Australia even. And there was nobody several years ago paying attention to the design of these rentals. And you see this industry growing. And I just looked at it from the perspective of, I have so much to say. I have so much to say to help improve these rentals. These people anybody can start a rental, and not anybody can design a hospitality space, a hotel. So I thought there's a missing link here. There's a gap that I think I can fill. And so I started focusing my design firm's efforts on short-term rental design several years ago, and just consuming all of the podcasts and everything I could. Also while being a consumer and a short-term rental host myself. Not long after that, I designed a 3-bedroom house as a short-term rental. And then I filmed a case study, essentially, which I turned into an e-course to teach people exactly how I did this step by step. How did I create this space to make it hospitable and beautiful and highly functional as a hospitality space, as a space that caters to guests, but is also beautiful and functional, that kind of checks all the boxes. So here I am. So now I'm in this world. I'm in the short-term rental world, the hospitality world, and it's absolutely my favorite place to be in the design realm, because you get a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and it's evolved and it's changed so much from what it used to be. I mean, even if we think about short-term rentals, I mean, we all had kind of vacation homes, and then they were kind of that kind of timeshare type thing where people would go and spend time at the holiday home. I remember in my family, there would be a notice board at my parents' work, and someone would have a property, and then you'd go and stay in that place. And then it evolved into Airbnb, and they did the big push where it was kind of a spare room, and then holiday homes. And now I guess where you were ahead of the curve was realizing that there's this huge opportunity in the professionalization of the hospitality experience, but also in the environment that people are actually visiting.
Yeah, exactly. There just seemed to be such a missing link. And you're right, the game has changed so much over the years, from even in the past 5 years to you being able to, leave for a summer holiday and just rent your space out. Even now, that's like the Airbnb of old, or the short-term rental of old. Whereas now it needs to be this professional place. You need to have all of your personal items removed, even if it's just you're renting it out for a few weeks. I think there's this additional pressure to make it the professional quality of a short-term rental.
Yeah, that's right. So folks, today, and we've been talking a little bit before we started recording, we wanted to make sure this episode was one that would be relevant if you're new to the game, if you're new in the industry, if you've already been in short-term rentals for a while, if you've got one property, if you've got 10 properties, it will apply. If you've got 100 properties or more, it will apply. But also to all the hotel folk that are listening to this, make sure that you pay attention, because there's a lot that can be learnt from the principles of providing a great guest experience through fantastic design. And if you don't believe me, then make sure that you jump onto your social media, Valerie. Like, it's incredible to see what you're doing out there. So if you are tuned in and if you're listening in, then make sure that no matter which industry you're in, there'll be parts that we're going to help you with. Now, when you approached me, you said, hey, there are these different mistakes that people are making within setting up their design, and you kind of narrowed them down to 4 kind of major points that we're going to go through today. Do you want to kick us off?
Yeah. Okay. So number 1 main mistake that you see made in the short-term rental space or hospitality space is not investing in quality furniture up front. Mm-hmm. As we all know, we can purchase anything for any price online now. So no matter what country you're in, there are your Wayfairs, there are your Amazons, you have quality from A to Z, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you know what is quality for a rental, and quality enough, right? Because this is a business. We don't just want to go throwing endless amounts of money at the furniture. You want every dollar that you invest to be worthwhile, to make a really solid return on your investment. You want furniture that is high quality, that lasts, but doesn't cost a fortune. So depending on where you are, the answer to where you find that furniture is different. So I won't go specifically into, the different brands, since we've got people listening from all over the world. Yeah. But I think just really do your research and make sure that what you're getting is hospitality grade, mm-hmm. and not the cheap, metal bed from Wayfair that costs $100. That's not it. That is not going to work. You're going to be replacing it, and you do not want to be replacing furniture for many reasons, right? Because that's wasted money, it's wasted time, and it's your reputation, and
it's going to lead to a bad review at the end of the day, right?
It's going to lead to a bad review. Yeah. So just pay a lot of attention to that quality.
Yeah, so when we talk about quality, and quite often it can be really difficult to understand what quality actually means, because we look at it and we say, well, just because it's expensive, it doesn't mean that it's great quality. Conversely, just because it's cheap, it doesn't mean that it's bad quality. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about quality, you're talking about durability, so making sure that things are going to last for a long time. And I think what I liked there was that kind of hospitality grade. And making sure that it's gonna last. So finding the right suppliers that will provide furniture that is hospitality grade, I think is one of the keys. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's absolutely right. And even I've noticed over the past 2 years, what you see on the main sites on Wayfair is you'll see that something is hospitality grade, or let's say commercial use. Mm-hmm. So that means automatically that it's going to be more durable, more long lasting. And then look at your warranties too. Don't forget to think about, like, what is the furniture manufacturer willing to own up to? That's really important. So just do your research.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, that makes complete sense, and I think a good starting point. I think that you were talking before about having visited a short-term rental that was there as part of one of the big brands out there, and some of these things, I think maybe you were even talking about furniture weren't up to par.
Yeah, definitely. We were in Paris just a couple of weeks ago, staying at now one of the large hotel brands has taken over a lot of rentals, as we know, and this particular one we booked through a major hotel brand, and it just did not, all of the quality of the furniture did not live up to what this big brand would typically say they want their reputation to uphold.
Yeah. So I guess what we're saying, right, is your furniture is part of your brand. It's part of that experience, right? So make sure that you get it right, and you do some research through there. The other thing I'd like to know, personally, I wouldn't know myself whether it's, what's good furniture, what's bad furniture, and that sort of thing. I know that from a design perspective, quite often it's great to have someone come in and give you a bit of a hand with figuring out what's going to work and what isn't, because you might be only doing it every now and then. If you're in a hotel, you have a procurement team that will be buying this stuff. But if you don't have that team, would you advise people to get a consultant? When we talk about our research, how do we do that?
Yeah, I absolutely. You can hire someone to help you. You can hire a consultant. You can, if nothing else, the easiest thing to do, if you are a small brand and you're just looking to fill one property or a couple of properties, go to some actual furniture stores. Get off of the internet and actually go visit some furniture stores and see, touch and feel, kick the tires, so to speak. I think that
Jump
would
up
be
and
really
down on the bed.
Jump up and down on the bed. Yeah, open and close
Cool.
the drawers.
Yeah, yeah. And then, okay, so next one on our list. What was the second thing?
So the second thing is, so the second main mistake we see when people are putting together short-term rental properties is that they create a space that is lifeless and sterile and a little bit too cold. Mm-hmm. Right? So you're trying to put together a space. You don't want it to be cluttered. You don't really know what you're doing. And you've filled your cart and you've bought all this stuff. And here you are. And now you put it all in. And it looks a little bit like a prison cell or a dorm room, right? Like, mm-hmm. So how do we avoid that? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm wondering if you've ever been there, Bart?
100%. It almost feels like a hotel room, or it's kind of like a badly designed showroom, right? Like you want those little touches, and that's actually a really good one, because when we're selling a property, right, we don't want any of our own personality to be there, so that we appeal to the widest market. Right? Mm-hmm. I think that what you're saying is that you want some of that, but you also want a little bit of your own personality, your own personal touch. Is that right?
It doesn't have to be your personality. I think the number one question that people ask me is, how do I decorate a space to appeal to everybody? Mm-hmm. And my answer to that is not your goal. Your goal is to appeal to your particular guest avatar. Who are you trying to attract? Yeah. So of course you want to attract as many people as possible, and you want your place booked up. But there is, by and large, when you're planning a property, there is somebody in mind. There is this avatar that you have that you're trying to attract. So think about that person when you're designing, when you're decorating, when you're selecting your art, all of those things. Outside of that, some really tangible tips are, go for really big art. I know that there's some anxiety around selecting art. This is something that I'm talking about with my course students right now, because it is, art is highly personal, and it's really hard to select something and to appeal to everyone. That feels really overwhelming. So you don't have to be offensive with your art selections, but you can still be interesting and different, and not just the same piece you see from Target or Wayfair. Try to be a little bit interesting. And the best tip is just to go as big as you can afford. So large, oversized art. If you've got a huge blank wall and you don't know what to do with that wall, go bigger, even bigger than you're thinking. So it doesn't have to cost a fortune.
I'm feeling bad about this piece that I have right here. It's just a little bit too small, isn't it?
We need to talk about that scale. Yeah, we need to make that. We're going to have to do some big art shopping for you. So large art.
Yeah, go on.
Wallpaper is another one. So think about doing some wallpaper. You can just do one wall. You can do the headboard wall is often done in the bedroom, which is really great. Works really well to just have that one wall. Or you could think about doing an entry hallway, just to give that kind of wow, interesting, Instagrammable moment to your property and to help give it some life. The other thing that can make places feel sterile, especially in their photographs, is thinking about the color temperature of your light bulbs. So you don't want to do like daylight bulbs everywhere. That's too cold. It'll feel hospital-like. But you also don't want to go like yellowy warm. So you want to go kind of in the middle with just the soft white light bulbs, if you can. And then I love to say, if you have the time, and you're doing like if you have a small scale business, I love to incorporate interesting vintage finds, or pieces from Etsy or secondhand stores, just to give it this vitality and character that's hard to fill into a sterile spec home otherwise.
Yeah, and then so in terms of our research, so one of the resources that I found really useful was looking at Pinterest and actually getting inspiration from Pinterest, where you've got other people that are like-minded, and you can kind of find that niche and that demographic and get some inspiration and get some ideas, especially if you're not that creative. You can go, all right, cool, this kind of all makes sense, or these are ideas that fit within the box. But one of the things that you said, which is very important, is appealing to a specific avatar or demographic, and making sure that we cater towards them. But let's say we are looking at, like with families, it might be easier. If we're looking at a younger generation, we might be able to start, pick up some magazines that target that particular demographic. So we've got some ideas as to what to put in there. Where else can we kind of, if we know our avatar, where can we get inspiration to then go, all right, this is kind of what I think that particular group of people is going to want?
That's okay. So that's a really great question. So I would start by going to my website and taking my style quiz. It's totally free. It is catered to short-term rental and hotel design. So there's only about 10 or 12 outcomes. So it's quilldecor.com, right-hand corner. It's called Style Quiz. And that is going to give you kind of an understanding of what is my design style that I need to be aiming for. You can then so that'll take you to an outcome page. It has some inspiration photos on it, but also you could take that design style. Let's say you got a contemporary cottage style. You could then take that contemporary cottage and then go straight into Pinterest and plug in your style and say contemporary cottage living room and search that. And it's going to pull up the particular style, design style genre that you're looking at. And it'll give you all kinds of inspiration images that should be catered exactly to the style you're trying to create.
Fantastic. So the other reason why it's a mistake to also leave things bland is how it appears externally, because obviously you're taking pictures of this and you need to differentiate yourself from your competitors, and this will particularly apply to hotels. Where it's all same, and you need to do something to stand out. And if you start to stand out, then at least you can start to pull more people in. Would you agree with that? That that's kind of one of the main reasons why bland is bad, apart from that it being in their experience?
Yeah, I mean, think about, I don't know if you're familiar with the hotel chain, the Graduate Hotels.
I'm not.
They specifically pull a vintage into their lobbies, to their hotel rooms, and every room's a little bit different. And they do that because they think they care about design, but also they're differentiating themselves in a market where everything is the same and sterile. And so they're trying to appeal to a different audience who really appreciates that niche, who appreciates, the creativity and the character that comes with these old vintage pieces and everything being unique.
Yeah, and I think particularly, so I mean, hotels, we know this from a long time ago that there's different ways to build it, but you also have, especially in the short-term rental space, where you have a lot of people just kind of cookie cutting and doing the same thing over and over and over again. And where you get market saturation, then it's great to have that differentiation point. I would recommend that you have a look at Art House Airbnb. The work that they're doing over there is fantastic, bringing in unique art pieces of local artists and having them on the wall. So therefore, it's no longer bland, and there's some design elements that go in there.
Are they selling them? It's like a gallery space where they
as well, yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Really great.
So it matches the two. So the work is done by the artist to go and create the display of how they would like it to be in the property, and then you can purchase it on the way out as well, and have that experience that you take home with you. So
that's awesome.
And it leans into it to what you're saying. Is there anything else to add on this particular point?
I think that's it. That was all for 2.
Beautiful. And number 3, what's the third most common mistake?
So the third most common mistake I see is not thinking from the guest perspective. So not thinking every decision you make and everything you do in creating this space should be done so from creating an environment, creating it from the hospitality perspective for the guest, not for your business, but for the guest. You have to really saturate yourself into the experience of the guest and create the space for them.
Yeah, and that makes complete sense. So what we're saying is that we add more of ourselves that we want to. We might not be able to put ourselves in the guest's shoes as much as we'd like to. I think it goes back to the avatar as well, and really understanding our guests and what that experience is going to be like overall. Is that kind of the angle that we're going down?
Yeah, I mean, I think... how many places have you stayed in where it's very obvious that the person who put the place together doesn't care about you? doesn't think about you, doesn't care about you, is completely disconnected. And then you've also stayed in other places where the person put everything together with you in mind, because you feel what? You feel cared for. You feel catered to. So there's a big difference, and it's quite easy to close that divide. It's quite easy to think about making your guest as comfortable as possible and thinking about everything from their perspective. And part of it is just, guest responsiveness, or host responsiveness rather, during the guest stay, making sure that the guest has everything that they need. So that part's easy. But then there's also ways to add luxury touches that can take your place to the next level, that don't have to be outrageously expensive. So for example, in a hotel, you typically have two sleeping pillows per guest, right? So that's a minimum. You need 2 sleeping pillows per guest with a pillowcase. Don't make guests go searching for it. And you can leave an extra one in the closet, actually, so that you don't have as much linens to do, but just give guests options. Make sure that they have that extra pillow. That's a small luxury touch, or it's a low price luxury touch that can go a long way. Another is having bathrobes, upscale hand soap. So just think about some things that make your place, that don't have to cost a fortune, but that can take your guest experience up a notch or 2 or 3.
To that other level. And that all goes even to coffee that you might have, and
nice coffee,
the appliances that you have in the place, and all of that. One of the great pieces of information I've picked up in the past is, when you're setting up a new properties, make sure that you stay there yourself. And that, maybe try a few different rooms or spend a few nights there, and then you can get that real experience of what it's actually like, not what you think it's going to be like, what it's actually like to be there. And then you go, oh, wouldn't it be nice if there was this? Or you realize that there's a great view, and it would be great to have some champagne glasses that you don't normally have in all your properties, or to really enhance that experience. I was in a hotel last week, and they hadn't thought of my experience very well, and the way the furniture was laid out was pretty poor, because you can watch the television in any angle, and it's these kind of little things of actually getting the guest experience. I think there's nothing better than actually staying there yourself and make sure that you try it out and you go, okay, this doesn't work, and therefore it shows that lack of care, doesn't it?
Definitely. Blackout curtains. There's very rarely a hotel in the whole world that doesn't have blackout curtains. This is something hotels always do, that short-term rentals really do often fall short on, because it is another expense. It's another layer. People don't know how to do it. It's confusing. It's not that confusing. It's 3 simple layers on the window. Do some hard blinds. Do a curtain rod. Do some nice blackout curtains. Make sure that your guests can sleep in. Even if, we've stayed at a place where I could tell it was a family home as well in the mountains, and they didn't have any curtains on the windows. And I see why, because the view was beautiful, and they clearly didn't want them, and they didn't like them, and they stayed there themselves. But it wasn't about them, it was about me. So if I want to sleep in my mountain home that I'm renting and paying money for, that should be an option for me. So yeah, just continually think about the guest perspective and how you can create a better experience for them. And the best way to do that is to ask your guests and stay there yourself, for sure.
Yeah. Or especially if it's a family home as well, or if it's a multi-generational unit that you want to come with everybody so that you can experience it and find out that you don't have enough cups or plates or whatever those little issues are. But if we go back to that sort of the overarching theme here, we're talking about is living the experience from the guest's point of view, and making sure to not make the mistake of not taking that into account.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. And then our fourth one. What was the fourth one?
The fourth one is very simple and really easy to fix if you have this issue. So as I've said, we kind of got into this business by staying in short-term rentals for the past 10 years, since it was, a very new thing. And the thing that I saw consistently, even in nice places, there's never enough lamps or end tables. I don't know what it is when it comes to yeah, that's fine. We're just going to leave all that there with, the sofa and the chairs, and there's no place to put your drink, your coffee, your wine, whatever. So just add some more end tables if you have space. Think about the space planning of the room, and always add more lamps. I think you can never have too many lamps, because having lamps allows your guests to control the environment by controlling the lighting. And that is so much about how a space feels welcoming and comfortable, is your lighting. So if lighting overwhelms you and you think, I don't know how to do the lighting right, just add more lamps. You want some with different types of shades. If you have a metal shade that throws a harsher light, make sure you have some soft shaded lamps to give that glowy light around the room. That really does a lot for changing the environment.
Yeah, for sure. I've been in places where you've only got one really bright overhead light, and that's the only one that you can use at a certain point, and then so you're stuck with it, and you can't do anything to work your way around it because there's just not enough lights. I remember grabbing lamps out of some rooms to move them into different spaces so that you create a relaxed kind of environment. So I can completely understand that. And I think the other side of it, and you've mentioned it a few times actually, is how critical lighting actually is when you're setting up a property, and how it makes you feel overall. So it's not just the number of lamps; it's like you said, the different colors, the different tones, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's a kind of what's a good way to sort of approach this? Like you're saying, just add more and more and more. But what's a good way to really think about it for somebody that's going, oh, do I have enough lights or not?
Yeah.
How do we know?
Yeah, so a good way to think about it, so if you have a living room space, for example, you can make sure you have a floor lamp. You can add some lamps on your end tables, but what you're trying to do is allow your guests to control the lighting level, like you said. So the lighting that is at eye level is going to be more relaxing than the light that you have coming from overhead, that harsh overhead light. So when you've got that one bulb beaming down, that's a real hospital-like feel. There are designers on Instagram who say overhead lighting is just 100% awful. Like just turn them all off, never even use them. We have them for like sculptural. You can see mine up there. I quite like my light. It's very pretty and sculptural. But generally at night, when there's actually there's no sunlight coming in, you want the light to be at eye level, so that nice ambient glowy light. I think the main thing, if you don't really know where to start or how to do the lamps, think about the spaces you can add the desk lamps to, or the table lamps to. So do you have a TV console? Do you have end tables? Think about the height of those. You see a lot of trend right now with big lamps, so bigger the better. Instead of doing like small dinky little lamps, which is probably the biggest pet peeve of mine in a space that has enough lamps, is that there's like the scale is off, so it's real tiny and small. So think about doing something bigger to scale with the actual table, and then like I said, just mixing it up so that you've got different types of light coming through. So if you've got a harsh metal fixture, that's called an apothecary fixture, it's going to throw a very different type of light into the room than if you have a shaded fixture, something that is white. And if you have a black shade, that's going to throw a different type of light into the room than a white shade. So play around with it. And you definitely want to play around with it in the space when it is dark outside, which is something I would say when you're setting up a property, you might forget to do in some cases. You're buying all the things and you're throwing it in and you're setting it up during the day. But what is it like at night? Because that's when the lamps are really going to come into play. And if you live in England, like I do, one thing they don't tell you when you move to England is that it gets dark here like after lunch in the winter. So we're just in the dark for half the year. So those lamps, that warm light is crucial. It's really important. Yeah.
It really it makes me think as well as we're kind of working through these different mistakes that we make, and I want to go back to an earlier point that you were making around things being bland and then bringing in your own personality. And the one thing that I'm really appreciating, like even you showed us which lamp you had above you, and it's so easy to also get it wrong because we add too much of our own personality, our own stuff into it, and then we make some decisions that are bad. And to be honest with you, a lot of people don't have the time, right, to learn all of these different things and to know what's good design thing, and spend the time on Pinterest when they're trying to find cleaners at the moment. So how do we avoid making, like, of course, you get a consultant in and that sort of thing, which is going to help you to get to where you need to be. But what kind of strategies can we use to really avoid making some of those fundamental mistakes of buying the lamp, which is the ugliest lamp in the store?
Planning. Planning in advance. And I know that you're doing a million things when you are buying a place. You're thinking about the loan and all kinds of things. There's so many things. You're trying to make sure that the local jurisdiction is going to allow you to do the rental properly. You're thinking about cleaners and managers and your system. Do you need a website? The guests. Yes, there's a lot. It's a lot of things to think about. But I think it's so easy to overlook design, but I don't really understand why, because it's fundamental. What you are selling is the space. What you are selling is the experience of the interiors of the space. So if you don't pay attention to that, you essentially don't have a well-run short-term rental business. You don't have something that is going to differentiate you. You don't have something that is going to sell itself. So you have to think about design on some level. And when it comes to the design, the decorating, the staging, the furniture buying, all of that, I think it does tend to be crammed into this small amount of space when possible. Mm-hmm. You get the place, now we've got the keys, we're ready. We need to have this thing up and running in 2 weeks because time is money. Let's go. Let's make a return on this investment. However, if you spend a bit more time putting the space together, if you can spend a bit more time getting the proper furniture, getting the things that are quality that are going to last, you're going to make that money back. When you pay attention to design, you're going to be more successful. Your place is going to be more profitable. So just the planning, yeah. So spend time on the planning. Recognize that it's just a part of the process, and the more upfront planning you do for all of the interiors, the more put together and designed the place is going to feel, and the more successful it's going to be.
Yeah, and I think that it also ties back so much to understanding your target market and your avatar and your audience as well, and what their expectations are going to be.
Yeah. Who are you trying to appeal to? Is it a person who cares about having robes in the closet, or is it a person who is going to be out on the beach with their kids? They're not looking for luxury. They're looking for, do you have beach toys in the garage for me to borrow? Do you have, every guest that you're trying to attract has very different needs and wants. Understanding those needs and wants is where you're going to be really successful. And a lot of times that does tie into it always ties into the design in some way, because you are selling the interior of your space, whether you like it or not. So the more planning you do for that, the more thought you put into that, the more successful you're going to be.
Yeah, and look, folks, the reason why we're doing this particular episode is not because this is this is proven. This proves true when you get it right. And I know that you've probably worked with plenty of properties that didn't have it right, that went in, you redecorate it, and then all of a sudden you can command almost double the price of the same property, and then the investment was insignificant in terms of the return that you're making, especially in a market right now where there's so much demand for accommodation in general. And it doesn't matter if it's a hotel or a short-term rental, it's just everywhere. It's just booming at the moment. So you can make some really good margin if you get it absolutely right. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've seen properties that seemed well designed and then had that upgrade, that facelift, and then you just see the bookings just come flying through. Yeah, because if you had that thought.
If you ask any property manager if they have a large portfolio of places, their owners who do invest in that design, they're going to see those places, more booked at a higher rate every time. So there's plenty of proof that this is where you should be focusing a lot of time and energy. And like we said at the beginning, this is not the short-term rental world of 10 years ago. We are in now a more competitive field. You are, whether you like it or not, if you're just one short-term rental, you're competing with hotels. That is your competition. And so you need to rise to that level and make sure that you're able to compete properly and create an experience that surpasses a hotel even, because as a short-term rental space with a kitchen, with extra living rooms, with an extra amount of space, you have the ability to be better than a hotel in many ways. So don't let the opportunity go to waste.
Fantastic. Look, I think we've worked through our 4 points. I think they're amazing, and I think you're amazing for sharing and jumping on, and what I like is getting people thinking and really giving them some high value tips of things that they could go and change. And you could take any one of those 4 elements and start to implement them in your business straight away, or do all 4 of them. And there's probably plenty more. Now, I know that you do lots of education and training, and you're helping people out. What's the best way for people to engage with you?
So my website is just quilldecor.com. It's Quill decor.com. Instagram is my favorite social media, so certainly DM me there if you'd like, or you can email me at info@quilldecor.com if you have specific questions so I can help you out. And I run a short-term rental design course that will be, you can find information about that on my website.
Yeah, fantastic. And we'll put all of your links in the show notes, as well as all of our links as well. So if you want to reach out to us about book direct websites, about marketing, about branding, and that sort of stuff. Folks, if you are tuned in on the podcast, then make sure you leave us some comments that you like and that you subscribe. The reviews really mean a lot to us as well. If you're watching on YouTube or any of those platforms, then once again, make sure that you like and that you subscribe. It does genuinely make a huge difference to us being able to create these awesome episodes for you all. Valerie, thank you so much for your time, your expertise, your knowledge, and for getting up at the crack of dawn.
It was my pleasure. I just realized how much we coordinated our outfits today. Look at us with our blue and our pink.
I did that. I've had another episode, if you look back with Sam Traddles, where we've got exactly the same blue shirt on. So it's actually not bad for a design episode. We did coordinate, didn't we?
We did a good job. Yeah, we did well.
Thank you so much once again. I appreciate you, and we'll catch you around.
Okay, thanks, Bart.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.